So, good morning and welcome from Cherri Forsyth to the last in my series on grief for the moment. We might revisit it later. And so, welcome from a very freezing South Africa this morning. Before we dig into various questions that have been asked over the years about grief, I would just like to thank you all very much for sharing the videos, the previous videos that we've had. The response and the reaction has been astounding. So I thank you hugely for the time and the effort that you've taken to share these videos, and I do hope that somewhere they will start to make a difference. That they'll start, as we've said, we want to start this ripple effect of people being able to speak about grief so that they can be much more supportive of each other when someone is going through the journey. So as I've mentioned today, we're going to be talking about some questions that have arisen. Some have been emailed through to me, some have come to me via the grief workshops that I do. And if you have any particular questions that you would like answered during this session, I encourage you to write the questions in the comment box, and my very handsome assistant, my husband, he will be picking up those questions and giving them to me. So if there's something that you are burning to know the answer to, I encourage you to put pen to paper and let's see what we can do. Once again, I don't have all the answers, but I can some of the questions due to the experience that I've had, as well as the many books and much research that I've been doing on this project. So we're going to jump right in to the first question, which is coming from someone very recently bereaved. It's a very common question. They are asking whether it ever gets any better. Because obviously when you first are bereaved, you're in quite a place, quite a state. So yes, it does get better most of the time. However, there are some people who choose to remain in victim mode for the rest of their lives, and they never really re-engage with life. And please note, I use the word choose because they might not consciously know that they're doing that, but that is what they're doing. So we can choose to heal, or we can choose to remain in victim mode. My personal feeling is, why on earth would you want to stay in victim mode when the choice is to heal, to re-engage in life, to rediscover the love, to rediscover the enjoyment? So as far as I think it's really important to know that yes, it will get better. And I welcome this morning to this broadcast an old teacher of ours, Mr. Ian Smalley. I haven't seen you in many years, but I hope that this talk is valuable to you. The second question I have is, and I'm reading it, I'm a very private person. Do I have to talk about my grief with others in order to heal, or can I heal on my own? You don't have to talk to anyone. Okay, you don't have to talk to anyone. If you're a very private person, you can keep your grief very private. You can read a lot, you can look at a lot of videos, and all of that is an internal journey. Your healing from grief is an internal journey anyway. Where it does help to talk to others is very often as you're speaking to them, you get more clarity in your own mind about what's happening or what you're wrestling with. But in answer to the question, no, you don't have to speak to others in order to heal. You can do that privately. So the third question is how do I answer when people ask me, how are you? When actually I'm not doing very well at all. So in this whole grief journey, it's very important to remain completely authentic. But also, we don't want to be a prophet of doom. So we don't always want to be like Eeyore the donkey, that life is so terrible, it's so miserable, it's such a long journey, there's no light at the end of the tunnel, because what we will do is we will chase everyone away. So we need to be authentic, but we also need to be positive. So one of the ways that I found really good was to say, I'm not so great today, but I know I'll be much better tomorrow. And then leave it at that. So you being authentic by saying you're not that great, but you ending on a positive note, knowing that you'll pick up the next day. On the other hand, if when people ask, how are you? And it's very recently after you've suffered your bereavement, and you always answer, I'm fine, that also is not being authentic. And the person who's asking you will think, well, how can you be fine? You've just lost your beloved. And what will happen if you always answer, I'm fine, is that others will stop asking. So that might be what you want, because you might be a private person, and therefore you actually don't want all these people finding out how you are. So you can almost chase them away by just saying, by being inauthentic and saying, I'm fine, and making it very evident that you actually don't want to engage. So I'd like to also welcome this morning Felicity, Duke Norris, Ding's good friend Margie O'Dell, and Kevin Scott. Welcome. Once again, I do hope that this video does help you. The next question I want to address is, what do I say to someone who's been recently bereaved? And this is the first time that I'm seeing them. This can be a very awkward situation, and it can lead to lots of the wrong things being said, and then lots of the wrong things being heard by us as the bereaved people. So this depends on so many things. It depends on what your relationship is like with this person who is bereaved. Are they a friend? Are they a family member? Are they a colleague that you work closely with? Are they just somebody in the same company as you? Is it just an acquaintance? So you don't have one size that fits all. It depends on what the relationship is like with the person who's bereaved. It also depends on what they are like as people and what you are like as a person. Because once again, we need to be completely authentic. So if the person that you're wanting to speak to is quite a touchy-feely person, a hug is fine. If they are emotional, then to brace yourself for the possibility that there may well be tears. If they are emotionally aloof, for you to treat them in their way and not force your way onto them. So for example, if I am a very emotional and huggy person, but the person that I'm speaking to is not, I mustn't dare to assume that they'll want what I have to give. So evaluate what they like as people and what they will need, rather than what we feel that they need. I hope that makes sense. One of the stock phrases, though, is to be able to acknowledge the grief. And so to say something like, I was so sorry to hear that David died. Please receive my condolences. And often that's all that's required, is just an acknowledgement. Welcome two other family members today, Cherri Talliard from Joburg and Pippa Mannerswood from Cape Town. I welcome both of you as the younger generation, and I do hope that this video will help you. Moving on to the next question. I am really battling because I've just recently been bereaved, and my friends want me to comfort them. How bizarre is this? But it happens so often. So when the person themselves is battling and they're visited by friends, quite often the person who is really the chief mourner is the one who ends up comforting the other people. And I'm not sure what the explanation for this is, but I do know that it's very difficult because you don't have, as the chief mourner, particularly initially after the loss, you don't have the energy to really give to other people. And yet you find that you are having to do that quite often. And what one needs to guard against there is, if we don't have a lot of energy and we're under stress, what will happen is we can get irritable. And we want to try and avoid that at all costs. We don't want to say comments to our friends that we will later regret. So I don't know what to answer to that question, but just maybe to be aware that it does happen, and that maybe as soon as you can, to cut yourself away from the conversation. Go and make a cup of tea or go to the loo or something. The next question is, in fact, the next three all have pretty much the same answer. What must I do if my friend doesn't acknowledge my grief? So the answer is there's nothing you can do. They will know about it. They will be uncomfortable and don't know what to do. And therefore you can't take it upon yourself to teach them. So the best thing is there's nothing you can do. You just have to accept it. The next question, which is linked, is how does one deal with insincere sympathy? So in other words, you can tell that the person is not really kind of on your page. And I think once again, maybe the insincerity is as a result of your people not knowing what to do. And so they come across as being insincere because they are at sea. Once again, just to remember that most people have the very best intention. They really do want to know how you are, and they really do want to care for you. But in insincere grief, there's nothing that you can do to make your friend have sincere grief. So once again, you just need to move along. Is it possible to not be emotional when telling others of your loss, especially just after it had happened? So my question is, if you are emotional, why are you wanting not to be emotional? If the loss has meant a lot to you, emotions are a natural part of that. And once again, I come back to authenticity. So if you are naturally quite an aloof person, you probably won't be crying anyway. But if you are a more emotional person and you do cry, all it's saying is, this person that I lost meant a lot to me, and I'm very sad. And that's okay. Also, there's not a direct question about this, but if you are engaging in a conversation that might be difficult or awkward, or you're finding that you're feeling a bit uncomfortable, really what you have to do is cut your losses, and you actually have to leave the conversation. Now, my handsome assistant is very good at that, and Mike will be very good to say, oh, sorry, I have an appointment I've got to rush to. I would love to carry on the conversation, but I've got to go. And so he's very good at being able to cut a conversation or an awkward situation. I'm not that good. And so I still do try to follow his lead. So if a question arises or I'm ending up not being comfortable in the conversation, I do need to leave. And so I will try and say, I would love to continue the conversation, but sadly I have to go now. Sometimes I can't even get myself to do that. So it is a difficult one. Some people find it much more easy than other people. So those are some of the main questions that I've been asked regarding the grieving process. And if you should have any further questions that haven't been addressed, I ask you please to drop me an an email if you would like on Cherri, spelled Cherri, at lifevision.co.za, and I'll do my very best to answer. And I welcome my friend Heidi Waller from Cape Town, and hope that you will find this video of help to you. So this was the last in my series of grief for the moment. And I'm not saying that I won't revisit the topic again. I probably will. But this is the 7th in this series. It's ended with some questions. And so I ask you to please continue to spread the word, to share my videos, to make comments. I so appreciate the support that I've received from many people that I know and many that I don't know. And I am going to do another live Facebook next week on Thursday. I'm not sure whether it is internationally known as Women's Day, but certainly in South Africa it is Women's Day. And I will be doing a live video on women. And then the next series I'm going to be doing will be on how to harness the power of the mind for sports people, whether you are at school or whether you are an elite international athlete. I'll be addressing that as my next series, and I hope that you will join me on those and once again continue to share my videos. So I thank you hugely for all your support. I welcome any questions that you might still have, and I say let's carry on the conversation. Thank you so much.